Donk Nation, Jackson, Janet's greetings and welcome to your Daily Dose of Donkey with Ginger. It's your boy, the Viking Donkey, bringing you what normally is Steelers talk, but there's really no Steelers going on, so we'll just call it some football talk this week. We don't have Laskers, he had some prior engagements. We do have Gingy in the house. Gingy, still football going on. We'll call it the top 10% of the teams are left. Are you surprised by what took place last weekend, setting up the conference championship weekend, Gingy?
What? Gingy in the house, no Steelers talk, womp womp. Yeah, can always talk Steelers, but, neither here nor there. Yeah, we'll talk divisional round then. I don't know. Did you see any surprises, really? I didn't. The one seeds came out.
Yeah.
Buffalo played a very close game versus Kansas City in Buffalo.
Josh Allen is never going to beat Patrick Mahomes.
Again, I'm pretty sure that the team that I called, ultimately came out. But nothing really shocked me, Donkey. How about you?
There's a little bit of surprises here to me. Green Bay, I really thought they had that game, but really, we saw the importance of a kicker this week, Gingy. I mean, all the teams who really lost, at some point, their kicker put them in a bad position. It's weird to see, especially being a Steelers fan, and really AFC North, the whole division has had pretty solid kickers for the past 5 years. Really watching kickers be a focal point, and then maybe even more importantly, Gingy, how the hell are the referees making such terrible calls time in, time out? The play I'm going to bring up is a 4th and 1 with the Green Bay Packers, where there are clearly 2 San Francisco 49ers lined up in the neutral zone. 2 of them doesn't get called. But more importantly, if you watch that play, I hate to say this, Jordan Love got that first down. There is zero doubt in my mind where he got that first down. And by the way, that side judge later in that game again marked the Packers a half yard short of where they should have been. A review gave them the first down. That side judge in the Packers-Niners game quite possibly cost the Green Bay Packers the game by, on that 4th and 1, not giving them the first down, which I think clearly happened. But more importantly, not throwing the flag on the 2 players who were offsides. Officials just cannot be a talking point after playoff games, Gingy, and this weekend was just unacceptable.
How do you rectify it, Donkey? I mean, we've talked about full-time officials for quite some time. I mean, when's the NFL going to catch up?
But more importantly, these quote-unquote, we talk to our officials, we rate them after the game. Look how much better baseball umpires got when they started making that shit known to the public. The way you do it is you make the refs who miss calls known that they miss calls. You have a rating system, but more importantly, blatantly obvious procedural penalties like illegal formation, lining up in the neutral zone, that shit needs to be reviewable, Gingy. Penalties that are black and white, not judgment calls, need to be reviewable.
Man, that's like, are you talking about reviewing balls and strikes now, Donkey, or what?
I'm talking reviewing safer out at first base, black and white. Balls and strikes are slightly subjective, so no. That's not what I'm talking about. The holding penalties, pass interference, illegal contact, that stuff is a judgment call. I'm talking the illegal formations, the lining up in the neutral zone, offsides on the defense. For example, the Kansas City right tackle, who his helmet never breaks the belt line of the center, you can see that shit on review. That should be reviewable, and every time he does it, you should get unlimited reviews if you keep getting them right, and every time he does it, it should cost the Chiefs 5 yards. It's that simple. Those penalties that everyone knows what it is, everyone points it out every week, should be able to be reviewed. I'm not talking a holding call here, a missed holding call there, because then you're getting way too deep into the weeds. But the fact is, the black and white penalties that everyone knows what they are, right, should be reviewable because the refs should not be a talking point after a game.
I can understand where you're coming from on that. Yeah. What catalyzes that? What moves that forward? How many more calls are going to have to be blown before that happens?
It's going to have to cost a team that the networks want to win a big game. It's going to have to cost, like, the Kansas City Chiefs a playoff game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, right? It's going to have to cost a big market a playoff game against a small market team that the NFL doesn't want to push forward. It's that simple. That's what it comes down to. We all know it comes down to money, market, who's compatible in the NFL. That's the way it's been forever. That's the way it's going to continue to be. Let's talk the other playoff game there. I mean, kudos to the Packers, good year. Kudos to the Niners, way to run it down their throat when the game mattered. I mean, they couldn't stop Christian McCaffrey, and the Niners let it known. That was good on them to go down, win that game. The next game we got Detroit, Tampa Bay. That was a pretty fun game. Bookend interceptions by Baker Mayfield kind of do the Bucs in. But outside of those, Baker played a good game. The first interception, not his fault. Second interception doesn't read the linebacker. Detroit gets to continue their feel-good story. And Gingy, I believe Jared Goff now has a chance to become one of 5 or 6 quarterbacks to lead 2 different franchises to a Super Bowl. Kind of compelling storylines there. A really young team, a team that a lot of people were laughing at the draft they had. Who's laughing now, Gingy?
Yeah. Lions are the real deal. It's going to be a good championship weekend. I feel like the playoff savvy Kansas City Chiefs are matched up against what I think would be probably a superior talented roster to them.
That Ravens team is stacked.
It really is. And I'm still not so certain that the Ravens are outright going to win that game. I feel like that moxie, that experience is really going to serve Kansas City well in a situation like this one.
We say that, but moxie experience last week was the first time that Patrick Mahomes played a road playoff game, Gingy.
Yeah, I know, right? And it went right down to the wire, didn't it?
It certainly did.
Versus the Buffalo Bills team that does not really stack up.
That's missing so many of their key weapons. Like, if that's a healthy Bills team, that's a different conversation. But you're talking an almost full-strength Chiefs team taking on a hurt Bills team. And let's not forget here, Baltimore has a good pass rush. It looks like Tooney, the all-pro guard for the Chiefs, might not be playing in that. But let's talk about those 2 games. Is Houston the team they were when they didn't play the Ravens, or the team they were when they played the Ravens? That high explosive Houston Texans offense, remember, they scored 0 points. The only touchdown was scored by former Steeler Steven Sims on a punt return. Is Baltimore that good, or were we all just hyping Houston a little bit too much?
I think that playoff experience, that's a super young Houston team, you know. I don't think that they had the juice to stack up against those guys like Roquan Smith. And really, I mean, honestly, they played a good first half. But Lamar Jackson poured it on in the second half, added another 3 tuts. His already first one.
You can see the rust in that first half on the Ravens offense. But let's be honest here. Houston didn't move the ball the whole damn game. So, like, inside the Ravens 40. They got to the Ravens 40, and the Ravens were just like, all right, do something now. And Houston certainly did not. That game kind of went the way I expected. Houston's just not quite there yet, especially when they're missing a couple talented playmakers like Tank Dell and that in there. Didn't really have defense to stand up there. Another former Steeler played pretty good, I thought, for him, Steven Nelson. We'll get into the former Steelers playing well in the playoffs for other teams here, and guys who probably should still be in Steeler uniforms, but that was good to see. Then we get to the Kansas City-Buffalo game, and Gingy, this is every Kansas City-Buffalo playoff game. Josh Allen does his best, but Patrick Mahomes is always just one step better, one throw better, one flick of the ball better. He's got...
always seems to shake out that way, don't it?
And Gingy, name a more iconic duo, and this is what I was trying to get to, in football than the Buffalo Bills and a missed field goal. Like, there's not a more iconic classic NFL duo.
Classic, wide right, per usual.
Just, you have to feel for them. I really don't, but you feel like you should feel bad for them, you know?
I honestly kind of do. I mean, I felt like that Bills roster had a really solid window for some supreme winning the last 4 years. And
good quarterback on a rookie contract.
They came away with very little to show for it.
One championship game appearance.
Very little, Donkey, to show for it. I mean, you can't say nothing because, yeah, it is what it is. I would go for that right now.
A championship game. A championship game isn't nothing. That's what I'll say. Making the playoffs to me is nothing, but winning a playoff game, specifically a playoff game that gets you to a championship game, isn't nothing. Because when you get to a championship game, you're a top 10% team. That's where you want to be. Any other team isn't a top 10% team. 32 teams, 4 spots. I know it's not quite 10%, it's a little more, but that's the top 10% to me.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to cut off 8/10 of a team here. We're going to let that other team get rounded in. And that's what these 4 teams are. No surprise to me. I mean, my poor Miami team's defense broke, but my preseason Super Bowl Detroit team's still there. I know Gingy's bandwagon double down is there with the red teams, right? You doubled down on the red teams at the start of the year?
Yeah, I'd say so. I'd call the Niners a wagon since week 1, though. You can book that.
I really like this matchup here. I think these are probably the 4 teams that if you watch the whole season, you'd say they're the best teams. And for me, I know there are teams that look better than Kansas City, but let's be honest here. Kansas City's defense playing the way it did with Patrick Mahomes, you knew that was going to be a threat in the playoffs. That's why I think these are the 4 teams, if you watch the year, you would put here. Of course, I voted with my heart last week. I wanted to see Tampa. I wanted to see Green Bay. And Gingy, Jordan Love has the worst damn mechanics I've ever seen, but my God, can that dude sling a football?
Isn't that the typical Green Bay franchise quarterback way?
You know what's scary is you're not wrong. And this is the same exact way. Brett Favre goes to the Jets. Aaron Rodgers goes to the Jets. Here's Jordan freaking Love. How the hell does that team just nail it every time they have to?
I feel like I'm getting old enough to watch this history repeat itself now, Donkey.
My whole life, they've had a dude who just looks like it shouldn't work, and it works. So I don't know what to say.
And here we are in 2024, still there. Okay.
Yep. We'll talk about those 4 playoff games that are coming up to end it. But let's talk about other news going around in the NFL. A lot of coaching hires going on, and some big names, Bill Belichick, getting shut out of a job for Raheem Morris, former Tampa Bay Buccaneers head coach, been defensive coordinator at the Rams for a while. But the one thing I will say is, Gingy, this hiring cycle, the NFL has to love the way it's going. It has been very minority heavy, including conclaves, Tampa Bay's offensive coordinator getting the job in Carolina and getting himself a 6-year deal, which I got a real question. Do you think there's any chance that dude sees year 6 of that contract? Because remember, Matt Rule signed a 10-year contract with them and made it, a season and a half? Do you think there's any chance Conclaves makes it to year 6 in Carolina?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I'm not convinced on the coaching carousel seems to be everywhere. Aside from a few solid teams, there are just guys going in and going out the door everywhere, it seems to me, Donkey. Especially at the bottom 5, bottom 10 teams in the NFL. They seem to be constantly rotating.
I hear you on that, but I am a firm believer a head coach should get 4 seasons, right? You should get 4 seasons because by then you should have your team built and ready to go. A lot of these bottom feeders are getting gone after 1 year. I don't get it. You don't give a guy a chance to even get familiar with his team till year 2. All you're doing is screwing up any young players you got there because now they have to learn a brand new playbook. Instead of becoming experts at a playbook, they're going to start the year novices again. I hear you. It's a terrible thing to see, but some of those firings were meant to be. I mean, let's be honest here. Stanley absolutely underperformed in the Chargers case. The Raiders case, everyone should know by now that Josh McDaniels is a fraud, but apparently we don't. Washington let 4 years play out with Ron Rivera. Carolina, thank God that guy sold his share in the Steelers to buy the Panthers because David Tepper's an idiot and that's a train wreck down there. Atlanta, Arthur Smith got 3 years. He got progressively worse, and this year what killed him was in crunch time, his first round draft picks were sitting on the bench for guys who weren't performing as well, and that really, really pissed off Arthur Blank. That's the owner down there. The Falcons owner, everyone knows his face if you see it. So no doubt that's what got Arthur Smith fired. I think the Vrabel one was a little surprising to me. That's probably the only one, Gingy, where I shook my head like, what are you doing? Maybe Seattle, but remember, Seattle hasn't had playoff success in almost 5. They're like the Steelers, except they decided to move on. Who else did we have? No, we already talked about the Chargers. There's one I'm missing, and I know, but honestly, I don't feel like this was a crazy carousel year. Carolina is Carolina. The other guys are all coaches who've had chances and really have struggled the last couple seasons. But when we get onto that, Gingy, are there any of these coaches you think are in a prime spot to take a team the way Houston did this year? New coach, get into the playoffs. Is there one of these teams that really strikes you as that team?
What do you think about the Chargers and Harbaugh?
That's the one I find interesting. Harbaugh's had success in the NFL. The Chargers still have Herbert on a rookie deal for the last year of it, so not going to be overpaying. Got some big superstars there. Expect a hit or two in the draft, maybe. And that's a team with, I think Denver's going the wrong direction. I don't know where Vegas is going to go. They really need to find a quarterback. And Kansas City is starting to age out some of their big-time vets on defense. And the offense looked a little suspect this year for the first time because they didn't have the money to pay. That's a good look. I like that, Gingy. What do you see in them?
Yeah, a lot of what you did, definitely a lot of people just talking about Harbaugh and the way that he could work and develop with Herbert better than maybe Staley did down there. And I think there's potential for that.
I don't think it could be worse than what Staley did. He was
rude, but true.
Boy, what, they made one playoff and got spanked in it? Is that the way it went? Or no, they lost? Yeah, they lost in it because in week 17 in a pointless game, he played his starters and his best receiver got hurt. Yeah, I remember that. That dude is the guy who goes for it when you shouldn't, and when you should go for it, he punts. Like, he was the one, and because I've talked about him a lot. Analytically, he is the dumbest coach ever because he doesn't understand how to read analytics, but he tries to use analytics. Like, if you don't understand them, don't use them. That's at least Mike Tomlin knows he doesn't understand how analytics work. Like, man. But I'll tell you, the hire that I think could be sneaky, and it's because that roster is stacked and that division sucks, is Raheem Morris. This is a guy who's played in the NFC South or coached in the NFC South before, knows that area well, and has a roster that if they add, I don't know, Russell Wilson, all of a sudden 11 wins isn't out of the realm of possibilities for that Atlanta team down there with the talent they have.
Okay, I could see that happening. Not a big I just lost his name. Who's that quarterback in Atlanta right now, fan?
Which one do you want? Desmond Ridder, who got benched like 4 times for Tyler Heinicke? I think Tyler Heinicke's the better of the two. I'll say that.
And that's a bad spot to be in.
I didn't like Desmond Ridder in college, and I certainly don't like him in the pros. The dude's just highly inaccurate, and he doesn't have the big-time arm. Like, if you're going to be highly inaccurate, you have to have that big-time arm like Justin Herbert, right? You got to make up for the errant throws you're going to do because mechanics are a little bit off. He doesn't have that to me. Also, let's talk we have a little bit of Steelers news here, I guess, Gingy. Lots of offensive coordinators being interviewed, but more importantly to me is the standard is a standard and nothing's going to change. Terrell Austin just got a 2-year contract extension. Woo! Sign us up for a first-round blowout again.
I I, 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 I think the problem is more on offense than defense, but it's not. I think the problem is more on offense than defense, but it's not. I think the problem is more on offense than defense, but it's not. I think the problem is more on offense than defense, but it's not. what we were looking for, exactly.
5 straight playoff games giving up over 30 points.
Yes. And all right, we can argue about this till your cows come home, Donkey. The football is a team game. All right, a team game, Donkey. Any team, any defense that gets left out to dry, the way the Steelers' defense has been left out to dry after 3 and out. Any team that has to play defense for 42 minutes a game is going to give up 400 yards, Donkey. I don't care if they're legendary.
I hear you. But what's the excuse for sucking in the first quarter? Because the Steelers were 24th in the league in points allowed and 26th in the league in yards allowed in the first quarter.
What's the excuse there? Slow start. It's going to have to come back to coaching. Listen, they got
exactly. I hear everything you're saying.
And maybe it's partly, partly the Gingy's fault. In the way that I like to see the defense play, in terms of the splash play, that's almost kind of like that a college basketball team that lives and dies by the 3. It's not necessarily consistent and reliable. That splash play defense.
We're like a college basketball team that relies on our center to score, except our center's 6'2", which looks okay when we play Little Sisters of the Poor, but when we play the big boys, we in trouble. That's the way I felt for the Steelers for 4 or 5 years. Like, look at our resume, Gingy, the last 3 years since Terrell Austin's been defensive coordinator. Look at our resume and look at our points per game allowed against playoff teams that are not AFC North. Look how bad it is. It's astronomically bad. Like, we don't have a single game in there where you're like, wow, we shut down a playoff team. It just doesn't happen unless it's an AFC North foe, but division rivalries are different. The fact of the matter is we're okay with being not okay. And I think that's where the problem lies. I'm not saying Terrell Austin's terrible, although he cannot scheme. He cannot scheme anything if TJ Watt isn't there. That's all I'm going to say. One player should not be your whole team, but on our defense, it certainly is. I just can't get over the fact that we're just going to keep these same old ho-hum-humdrum BS. We're going to preach the line, and Mike Tomlin changed it, by the way. I don't know if you noticed, but at the end of the year, he wasn't saying the standard's in the standard. It's scared money don't make money. Yet we get to the playoffs, Gingy, and we're scared money. Like, I understand Mike Tomlin's building a staff to build himself another 9-8 football team. I just don't like it.
Let's hope not, Donkey. Let's hope we keep some... There's opportunities with some different decisions in the offseason to maybe rectify these problems through some personnel changes. Not at the coaching level, but
we have to.
Let me see. What would be the dream?
$22 million in cap just to get cap compliant for next year.
Yeah, okay. Let's talk about that. Allen Robinson gone. $10 million.
$10 million
there. Chuck. Gotta be Chuck's core for. Makes a lot of money. Okay.
I think he saves you about 6 because I think a lot was a bonus for him. So I think he'll save you 6 on the cap. About 6 dead. It saves you 2, I think.
4, what I looked up, but maybe
4?
2.
All right, that sounds right. That sounds fair.
Harvin.
It'd be 4 if you split his cap hit over. So a June 1st cut would be $4 million saved because you do $2 million this year, $2 million next year on dead money. Sorry, I missed the next one.
Punter Harvin, that's $1 million.
And he's rookie replacement. Anyone will get the same money he gets. He was a 6th-round draft pick. Rookie replacement will be of value, so no cap saving there.
All right, never mind on that. Then we'll go with.
But he does need to be gone. You're 100% right.
What's Casey make?
You're missing KZ. I don't even know if he's contracted next year, but if it is, Keanu Neal would save you $4 million. That's the one I know. I don't know if KZ even has a cap hit, but I'll tell you right now, the 2 biggest ones are ones you missed. Ogunjobi, you post him June 1st, you save about $6 million, and there is a lot of money to be saved on Cam Hayward. A lot of money. Dude's a great player. Dude's a great Steeler, but dude's not $23 million good. And I know
we
gotta keep him.
We're over cap $15 million right now.
About 22 because you have to include rookie class in it. So you need to free up $22 million at least just to be cap compliant next year.
That's a lot.
Yeah, especially with a team that you look at, Gingy. Like, I get $22 million if your roster's talented, right? I just don't see the talent.
No,
I don't see the talent for the amount of money we've spent.
What's thinking about dream trades in the offseason, Donkey? I don't know if Kenny Pickett's the guy. I want a QB.
I still want Devin White.
I want a QB. What if we go?
Name me a QB you want. That's the problem.
Like, Donkey, you just can't handpick Patrick Mahomes.
Are you gonna take a Dak who doesn't win in the playoffs? Are you gonna take a Russell Wilson who's washed up? Are you gonna take a Garoppolo who couldn't make it work in Vegas? Are you gonna take a Carr who couldn't make it work in New Orleans? Are you hoping that the Cowboys get rid of Dak in that contract? That's the problem is who's going to have a quarterback that's willing to give you that you would want?
What if I gave the Bears...
TJ Watt straight up for Justin Herbert?
The Bears, Deontay Johnson, and a 4th rounder for Justin Fields.
Keep dreaming. If they're getting rid of Fields, they're getting at least a first.
Deontay Johnson and a 4th is the best I can do.
And why would they want Deontay Johnson? That receiving core is stacked of receivers that are as good as Deontay Johnson. I mean, they just traded for more last year. They had their own guy. That's not a team I see. Fields is a guy who'd be interesting, but I'm going to tell you something right now, and a lot of people are going to hate me for this. Justin Fields is that guy who will absolutely stack the stat sheet, but lose you football games. There's one reason that I don't want to give up on Kenny Pickett. It's Kenny Pickett's shown that rare ability. Making comebacks and winning football games when you have to shoulder it is not an easy skill in the NFL, Gingy. Quarterbacks struggle with it. It's what's keeping Justin Herbert from that top level. That's why I'd like to see that, but I'm not saying I'm staying pat with Kenny Pickett. I said before, I want to bring in a guy like Jameis Winston, who's been a big winner before, who's not afraid to throw the ball. And I want to draft a guy in the 2nd, 3rd round, and the guys that I'm looking at are Michael Penix Jr. from Washington, Cam Ward from Washington State, or Bo Nix from Oregon. Those guys who are just gamers. I want those guys who have that clutch ability, a Baker Mayfield-esque type of statute about them, right? Justin Fields, I loved him coming out of college. I love what he does on the field. The dude just doesn't win football games. Look how many games that he's thrown in a tie game or a one-possession game, a turnover in the 4th quarter. Just look how many times it happens. I just don't know if a quarterback can overcome that.
Yeah, I hear you, Donkey. I hear you on that.
If you were to name guys who are available, who maybe have that thing, he would be a good name to throw out there. And the other one you could throw out there, if you're in love with what he did in BYU, and I thought he was a fraud then, of course, is Zach Wilson of the New York Jets. Would be the other young name you could go to me, and I'd be like, maybe. But I don't know. I've heard Kyler Murray's name on there a lot, but an injured quarterback who, again, doesn't win football games, not exactly my cup of tea.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to give up Murray. I think they're going to keep Murray.
No. If you're gonna do it, you're gonna end up with a retread, and then you have to look at who's the best retread. Does Kirk Cousins walk from Minnesota? Do you take a chance on a career backup guy like, I don't know, Tyrod Taylor, Jacoby Brissett? Yeah, no, those are the type of guys the Steelers are going to go for because you know it's not going to be a big tier move. And more importantly, if it was a big tier move, who's going to be out there? I mean, we could talk moon and night what the Bears would want for Justin Fields, but at this point, I think they'd be dumb to move on from him because you make sure your offensive line is good before you get a quarterback. They have a chance to 2 picks early, they have a chance to absolutely drill the offensive line and then put a quarterback behind it next year if Justin Fields doesn't work out. They're in a spot much like the Steelers are to me. Kenny Pickett doesn't work out. Who gives a crap if our offensive line's really good going into next year? We can put a rookie behind that and have a Houston Texans type of jump, right? I don't think this is the year to get a quarterback outside of, journeyman type, right? See if Andy Dalton has anything left in the tank. Not really. I'm joking on that. Joe Flacco coming in just to be, a veteran presence to teach Kenny Pickett. That type of thing is what I see. Bring back Mason Rudolph, a guy who's helped out. Those are the things I saw. Those are what I would look for. But you know what? If we hit the moon, let's hit the moon. But if we're going to hit the moon, Gingy, I don't want Justin Fields. I want Justin Herbert.
I hear you. Good luck getting Justin Herbert, though. That's like Jupiter. That's not even the moon.
How much does Harbaugh love J.J. McCarthy? Because that
not that much. I'm going to tell you right now, not that much.
I'll take a chance on Justin Herbert. Let's get into the last part of the Steelers talk here. A lot of offensive coordinators being brought in for interviews, including like whatever his name is, from the Rams right now. The guy at Carolina who just coordinated the worst offense in the NFL, but was a huge up-and-comer and assistant head coach in Sean McVay's system not that long ago. Maybe the Steelers are figuring out we need one of those offensive coordinators from, I don't know, the McVay, Shanahan tree. I think Jared Johnson also just came in, the coordinator or the quarterback's coach for, Houston. I wouldn't mind seeing that. He clearly helped develop a young quarterback. That's great to see. That's what I want, is a guy who's worked with a young quarterback and developed him in this next offensive coordinator, Gingy. I've also heard some veteran names like Cliff Kingsbury, and I'm like, please, God, no. And I've heard guys like Pep Hamilton get mentioned but not be interviewed. Are there any names on this list that you look at and you go, that's the guy I want?
Can we get Eric Bieniemy?
I would love that, no doubt about it. But it does not seem like that's going to be the way for us to go. But
that's the list. That's the one I want, Donkey.
I still wanted him to be my head coach, so that's what it is. I'm hearing a lot that Zach Robinson, though, might be going to Atlanta. That's the guy from the Rams, Raheem Morris was with the Rams, so that would kind of make sense. But Zach Robinson is really the guy that I would like to see, because the Rams led that really balanced offense, really utilized tight end, utilized pre-snap motion, but was a more run-heavy than pass-heavy team. But they set up the run with the pass. They did the modern approach to football. That's why Zach Robinson is really the guy I was looking for. I soured a little bit on Thomas Brown, mainly because that's the Carolina guy. And this is the problem I have with Thomas Brown. It didn't look like their young quarterback took a step forward at all in Carolina. And that, to me, we're going to have probably a young quarterback. We need someone who can get him to take a step forward, not a step back, like Matt Canada, Matt Sullivan, Eddie Faulkner did, right? We need someone here. But, Gingy, my big thing to you is any of these offensive coordinators, if they don't get to hire their own staff, do you really expect anything to change? Because I know the Steelers have already announced they're retaining Pat Meyer and his terrible coaching of the offensive line. I just don't know if a coordinator is really going to change much when it seems like Mike Tomlin wants to keep doing what he's been doing.
Yeah, it doesn't bode well, does it, Donkey? We'll have to wait and see, but you're right. It doesn't look good.
No, it just looks like we're putting a new figurehead out there, and he's going to have to do what Tomlin says, which, that is what it is. Anything else you want to talk about before we talk about these last two division games? Conference games?
Give me conference championships, Tonk.
Let's go into it. Let's start with the NFC. Do you have the Niners, everyone's early season doll, everyone's favorite, maybe showing some kinks in the armor the last 3 times they stepped on the field, going against a Detroit team who they really just want to beat you 48-45. Is there going to be fireworks in the NFC, Gingy?
Donkey, I said it in week 1, and I remain with it today. The Niners are going to take that game.
Give me Detroit 42-35. I don't think Brock Purdy is going to come up with the long drive at the end. I don't think that Niners defense that's starting to get worn down is really going to be able to handle the firepower Detroit brings to them. Because let's remember, the Packers were short a couple key weapons in that game, including A.J. Dillon, big physical running back. Detroit has their big physical running back, Montgomery, healthy, and their speedster Gibbs healthy. So that's what it is. Lasker says go ahead and he'll take the Lions as well. Now let's get to the AFC. We got a team we know well. We've got to see a lot. Potential MVP on that team. This is the matchup of MVPs, right? Mahomes versus our boy. Just kidding. I just wanted to say that to make you really mad. Lamar Jackson, the human highlight reel. Does this the time Lamar takes that team to the Super Bowl and puts his doubters to rest, Gingy?
To be quite frank with you, yeah. I think they overcome the hump this year. I've seen a healthy Lamar Jackson throughout this year, MVP caliber season. I do think that, like I said, the Chiefs got the playoff moxie. They got the experience, right? But yep. I think that Ravens roster is just too strong on both sides of the ball for the Chiefs to keep up. Ravens win.
I hear you on that. Of course, Laskers likes the Ravens. I also like the Ravens. That roster is just stacked with talent. And if you watch back the games they lost, it was more so they beat themselves than the other team beat them. That's
gonna be tough.
Yeah, that's a tough team to beat. I think the way you beat them is what Houston saw last week. They had rust from not playing, which might be a big contributor if they make it to the Super Bowl. But I don't see the rust coming this week. The Chiefs they haven't been dominant, but they've been winning, and I think that just the buck stops here, let's just say, and that's what it is. But let's talk about some former Steelers out there in the playoffs right now making an impact. You guys like Ray McLeod. You have Arthur Millette in Baltimore. Maybe he was worth the money the Steelers wouldn't give him. He's having a great year there. Isaiah Buggs calls out the Steelers coaching staff, gets cut. Next year, he's a starter for Detroit. It'd be really nice to have a starting caliber defensive lineman on this roster, but hell, what do I know? Also, Cam Sutton's playing out there. It's good to see some of these former Steelers who were contributors here getting out there and getting to do their thing somewhere else, Gingy. I know it's not as good as seeing as if they were Steelers, but, seeing guys who've given their time, dedication to our franchise, being out there and being successful with another team, at least it's something to look for. And if you don't really have a rooting interest, go ahead and root for these guys who, for the most part, bled black and gold for a little bit, huh?
I dig it, Donkey, and I agree. Yeah, I like all those names that you said. Wish they were still here, but kudos on them out there on their new squads.
I guess that's time. Gingy, do you have a shout out for a week of no Steeler football?
No, thank you. Look at how dang good the Ravens are. It's disheartening, but dang, man. Hopefully we're going to see some good close games this week. We're getting less and less on the blowouts, and I like that.
Now, Gingy, I know you hate the coach of Carousel, but look how much better Baltimore's offense got when they fired a coordinator who was coordinating the top 10 unit because they knew it could be better. That's what I mean. That risk-taking is what the NFL's about. My shout-out is to all 4 of these teams that remained and all 4 that just made it. I'm sorry for the Tampa Bays, the Green Bays, no Battle of the Bay over there, the Houstons, and the Buffalo Bills. Hey, y'all were the second 10%, but not the top 10%. So kudos on a great season to all of y'all, except Buffalo. You beat our pants off. I don't appreciate that. Now it's time to let you know I'm the Viking Donkey. It's Viking_Donkey on Twitch and Twitter. Your daily dose of Donkey with Ginger is where you get all this fun content. I'm sure we'll be back. I'm sure we'll be talking about award shows that are happening because some fake stats seem to be what the deciding factor is in votes. Garbage. But that's neither here nor there. Let us know what you think of the show. Leave a like, comment, follow. Gingy, send them home.
Mutant Gingy in the house. We hanging out. We talking Steelers. We doing the thing. We talking football. Conference championships this weekend, folks. Let's go. Can't wait to see it. And I tell you what, folks out there, you know what? Just for old time's sake, wave them if you got them. Let's go.